Music touches all of us. Imagine playing your favorite song, or even writing your own song. This tape will teach you about music. It's a simple step-by-step lesson through which you can learn the basics of reading and understanding music. Reading music is not like reading a book. When you read a book, you use your imagination to give action to the words on the page. But when you read music, you express the action through a musical instrument, such as a piano, a horn, a cello, or a human voice. Written music is simply a system of symbols, which tells us at what pitch and for how long to make certain sounds. So making music is just a matter of translating the symbols into the sounds they represent. It's up to you how to make the sounds. But the written music will tell you how to put them in the right order, with the right timing and pitch. First, let's learn some very basic things about written music. It is made up of two simple components. They are the staff, which looks like this, and notes, which look like these. Our first lesson is about the staff. The staff is used to organize written music. It is a series of 5 lines. Each line and each space between each line represents a particular pitch. For example, this line represents this musical pitch, and this space represents this pitch. Musical sounds can be very low in pitch, like the sound made by this tugboat's horn, all the way up to very high-pitched sounds, like this referee's whistle. We use the staff to organize musical sounds into an orderly progression, from those that are low-pitched to those that are high-pitched. Remember, written music is meant to be played on an instrument, so we'll use this synthesizer to help us get better acquainted with the staff. When we play this pitch on the synthesizer, this line on the staff is highlighted. This line and this pitch go together. This line on the staff represents this musical sound. This line will always represent this same sound or pitch. This space on the staff represents this musical sound. It will also always represent this same sound or pitch. This pitch is called E. And this pitch is called A. We'll learn more later about the different pitches on the staff. For now, the important thing is that you understand that each line and each space on the staff represents a separate musical pitch. As you may know, there are too many different musical pitches to be named on just one staff. So there are several staffs used to organize musical pitch. This lesson will teach you about the 2 most common staffs. Knowing about these 2 staffs will help you read just about any popular melody. Each staff has a name. The upper staff is called the treble. It is identified by this symbol, called the treble clef. The lower staff is identified by this symbol, known as the bass clef. The clefs are always placed on the left side of the staff, like this. And the staffs are arranged on the page in this manner. The space between the treble staff and the bass staff may look empty, but it's not. There is actually an invisible line located right between the two staffs. So the pattern of lines and spaces continues from the bottom of the bass staff all the way to the top of the treble staff. Before we continue, let's review what we have learned about the staff. The staff is a series of lines and spaces, each one representing a particular musical pitch with a particular name. The two staffs we are learning about are called the treble clef and the bass clef. If you understand what you have seen so far, let's move on to the next lesson. If you're not sure, remember, your How to Read Music video never gets tired of repeating itself. This lesson will explain what musical pitch is all about and tell you the name of each musical pitch. You will also learn how the staff allows you to read musical pitch. All sounds have pitch. For example, this little dog has a high-pitched voice. And this big dog has a low-pitched voice. These dogs may think they sound great, but really they're not very musical. Only certain sounds are considered to have musical pitch. These sounds are named with the first 7 letters of the alphabet: A, B, C, D, E, F, and G. This series of 7 musical sounds is called the scale. There are, of course, more than 7 musical sounds, so the letters that we use to identify pitch are repeated as pitch gets higher or lower. The maestro has graciously allowed us to use his piano to help show how the staff organizes musical pitch. This is the key for middle C. The arrow is pointing to the invisible line between the treble clef and the bass clef. This line always represents the pitch of middle C on the musical scale. Next comes D. When we press the key for D, the arrow points to the space reserved for that pitch. This space will always represent the musical pitch D. Let's take a look at each line and space all the way up to G, which is above the treble staff. So, next we press the key for E, then F, and G, then A, then B. Remember that the scale repeats as we go up or down in pitch, so the next key is C again. You may have noticed that the sound of this C is similar to the sound of middle C, only higher in pitch. Next comes D, then E, then F, then last but not least, G. Here is the treble staff with each pitch identified on the line or space which represents it. And this is the bass staff, with each pitch identified in its proper line or space. Playing the scales is simply a matter of playing each of the pitches on the staff in order. Notice as you move up on the staff, the sounds are higher in pitch, and as you move down, they are lower. If we play the F here, then go up 7 changes in pitch to the F here, we have gone up in pitch 1 octave. In the same way, if we go from middle C to C here, we have gone up 1 octave. If we go from middle C to C here on the bass staff, we have gone down in pitch 1 octave. An octave is a full 7 steps in pitch, no matter where you begin on the scale, or if you go up or down in pitch. Also, every musical pitch on the scale has what are called sharp and flat pitches. If we begin here with the pitch G and go up in pitch only 1/2 a step, that pitch is called G sharp. G sounds like this, and G sharp sounds like this. And if we go down in pitch 1/2 a step from G, that pitch is called G flat. Again, G sounds like this, and G flat sounds like this. Remember, every musical pitch on the scale has a sharp and a flat pitch. Learning which line or space represents which musical pitch is very important. Spend some time memorizing the names of the lines and spaces on the staff. Make it your goal to be able to recognize them at a glance. Here is an audio-visual flashcard exercise designed to help you learn about the treble staff. Try to name the line or space before the answer comes up on the screen. Good luck. This space is the pitch for E. This line is the pitch for G. This line is the pitch for B. This space is the pitch for C. This space is the pitch for D. This line is the pitch for middle C. This space is the pitch for A. This line is the pitch for F. This space is the pitch for D. This space is the pitch for F. This line is the pitch for E. Don't be impatient. As you become more familiar with the staffs, recognizing the lines and spaces representing the different pitches will become automatic for you. Lesson 3 is all about rhythm and tempo. Just as a drill sergeant calls cadence for marching, rhythm calls cadence for music. There are 2 parts to time or rhythm in music. The first is beat. The other is measure. Just like minutes in an hour, there are a certain number of beats in each measure. Time in music is expressed in beats per measure. We can begin to understand about rhythm by simply counting to 4. As we count, we are counting beats. Each 4 beats completes a measure. On the staff, the beginning and end of each measure is marked by a vertical line like this. As we count from 1 to 4, the 1 beat is a little louder. This is to emphasize the beginning of the measure. Try tapping your foot along with the beat as you count aloud. Tap your foot a bit heavier on each count of 1. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. A measure with 4 beats is in 4/4 time. The time is noted on the staff just following the clef. 4/4 time is also called common time. Often, a C for common time is used to indicate that 4/4 time is to be used. But 4/4 is not the only musical time. Any number of beats per measure is possible. Here is an example of 3/4 time. As you can see, there are only 3 beats per measure in 3/4 time. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Tempo is simply the speed of the beats, or how fast you go. Here is the example of 4/4 time we just heard. And here is 4/4 time at a faster tempo, or as some might say, up tempo. Let's review what we have learned about musical time. Musical time is divided into measures, with a certain number of beats per measure. Tempo is the speed of the beats. Here are some examples of how beats and measures regulate music. Sing along if you like, and be sure to tap your foot.
Mary had a little lamb, little lamb, little lamb. Mary had a little lamb, its fleece was white as snow.
Let's try another.
Hush, little baby, don't say a word. Papa's gonna buy you a mockingbird. If that mockingbird don't sing, Papa's gonna buy you a diamond ring.
You may have noticed that if you don't stay right with the beat, you lose your place very quickly. So you see how important it is to keep on the beat. Let's move on to the final lesson, to the tune of a marching song.
This old man, he played one. He played knick-knack on my thumb with a knick-knack, paddywhack, give a dog a bone. This old man came rolling home.
Our next lesson is about musical notes. Simply put, notes tell you the length of time or duration of a musical sound. Remember that time in music is expressed in beats per measure. And since notes tell us how long to play a certain sound within a measure, notes are also expressed as parts of a measure. In the previous lesson, we learned that the staff tells us the pitch of a musical sound. We use notes to tell us when to play that sound and how many beats of the measure to make it last. There are a number of different notes you need to know about. This is a whole note. A whole note lasts for the whole measure. This is a half note. A half note lasts for half of the measure. This is a quarter note. A quarter note lasts for 1/4 of the measure. This is an eighth note. It lasts for 1/8 of the measure. Eighth notes are shown like this when they come one after the other. We could go on. There are more types of notes. There are 16th notes and 32nd notes, even 64th and 128th notes. But for now, we will stick with the basic types of notes we just learned. This staff with a treble clef will help us learn more about notes. Remember, the C means to use 4/4 time, so we know there are 4 beats per measure. As we mentioned at the first of the lesson, a note tells us how long a musical sound lasts. Let's start by putting a whole note on the part of the staff reserved for the musical pitch A. We have just written one measure of music. With a whole note on A, we know to play the sound with the musical pitch A for the entire measure, because a whole note lasts for the whole measure. Here is how this measure is played. Here's a measure with two half notes. The first note is on the space representing A, and the second one is on C. Half notes tell us to play the pitches for 1/2 of the measure. Since we're using 4/4 time, half of the measure is 2 beats. Here's how this measure sounds. Here's an example of quarter notes. The first is on A, the second on C, the third on F, and the fourth again on C. Each quarter note in 4/4 time lasts for 1 beat, or 1/4 of the measure. The measure is played like this. Earlier in the tape, we learned about sharp and flat pitch. This symbol, when placed next to the note on the line representing a particular pitch, like this, tells us to play that pitch sharp for the rest of the measure. For example, this note tells you to play the pitch G. If the symbol for a sharp note is added, we are simply instructed to play the G sharp every time it occurs in that measure. When this symbol is added to the note, we are instructed to play the pitch flat. This is G again, and this is G flat. This symbol is called a natural. It is used to restore the line or space to its natural pitch from a sharp or flat pitch. If you combine all of the things you have learned about pitch, the staff, time, rhythm, and notes, with a little practice, you should be able to read simple melodies. If you have a musical instrument and you can find the right pitch, you can play these two familiar measures. Don't forget that your voice is a musical instrument too. Before we play the melodies, let's read them out loud. In the first measure, this quarter note is on the space reserved for middle C, so we should play the musical sound with the pitch C for 1/4 of the measure. And this quarter note tells us to play the pitch C again for 1/4 of the measure. The next is a quarter note on the line that is reserved for G, so we should play the musical sound with the pitch G for 1/4 of the measure. And this quarter note tells us to play the pitch G again for 1/4 of the measure. In the second measure, this quarter note is on the space that is reserved for A, so we should play the musical sound with the pitch A for 1/4 of the measure and then repeat it. The next is a half note on the line reserved for G, so we should play the musical sound with the pitch G for the remaining half of the measure. Here is how the tune sounds. See if you can read the notes that are being played in this old familiar tune. Remember to tap along and watch for the eighth notes. It goes something like this.
G, E, G, G, E, G, A, G, F, E, D, E, F, E, F, G, C, 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 D, E, F, G, G, D, D, F, E, D, C.
Did you recognize the song? This old man tapped right along with us. Let's try another one. Be sure to watch for the flat note.
F, G, A, F, F, G, A, F, A, B flat C, A, B flat C, C, D, C, B flat A, F, C, D, C,
Now you can see how reading music is not like reading a book. It may seem confusing at first, but with a little practice, you will soon be reading music just as easily as you read your favorite book.
This has been a presentation of Allied Video Corporation. We produce a variety of video products for the classroom. For a complete list of these and other educational tapes, please call toll-free 1-800-926-5892.